Yes, yes, everyone join me in hatred, anger, and malice. Come to the dark side as you lose your optimism and realize it's still fucking Konami. Ha ha, I was right all along! No, no, we'll get to that later, guys, but we gotta lightning round some shit. There's a lot to talk about and only so much time to get into it. So, first up, let's just get right into it with that Sonic the Hedgehog trailer. Oh, fucking Christ. Oh, Jesus, how is it this bad? What else is there left to say about the Sonic trailer? Well, I'm gonna say the thing that nobody has ever wanted to say, but I'm gonna say it right here, and that is of all these kid properties they keep trying to modernize and CGIfy and have a breeding pair for the adults and stuff, whatever. Of all of these, I've always felt Sonic could actually work. Because above all else, Sonic the Hedgehog, the best part about any Sonic game is Sonic himself. It's the personality, it's the wittiness, it's the sarcasm, it's the expressions. All of that is what makes Sonic. And honestly, you can fit a character like that into any setting. If it's gotta be our world, because that's what they think will sell, and the people who write the scripts for these awful movies usually don't care enough to actually learn about the lore of the characters they're writing for. If you've got to set them in the real world, as long as you got that personality, I think you're fine. And yeah, the design is not good, but if you got the personality, it's fine. The thing here is that they are very clearly marketing it that it's going to be just like Smurfs and Alvin and the Chipmunks and all that crap. It very clearly looks like Sonic is not going to be in the movie much. It's very much appearing. Jim Carrey will be sort of leading a lot of it as Robotnik slash Eggman, or a guy claiming to be Robotnik slash Eggman, because there is nothing about that character in this. I am not super well versed in Sonic, but it's clearly not that. Like, that is what I can say about this. Even that shot of him looking like Robotnik at the end doesn't really hold any weight because the personality's not there. There's nothing about it that works. And the thing about Sonic is that I feel like his personality could fit in perfectly with sort of the cynical, smartass vibe all of these things try to have. You could basically place Sonic as sort of like a little not genius Tony Stark, and I think you could definitely make that work. But that's not what they're doing. Like, they very clearly are just making another generic dumb thing. And it sucks because Sonic's not. Sonic, unlike, say, like, I'm glad Detective Pikachu looks like it actually turns out to be really good. But unlike something like Pokemon, Sonic's not doing super well as a brand. Like, the games don't really come out as much anymore, and they're not making a ton, and the cartoons aren't lasting very long or even put on a good time slot. So I felt like a movie could actually sort of give Sonic the jolt of life he really needs right now. But this is not going to do that. There is so much hatred for this trailer already. You can't even use the logic, well, it's a kid's movie to save it, because only so many kids will go to see something that looks this just uninteresting. So yeah, that is that. Also, one last thing. I feel so sorry for James Marsden. I really like it. I think he's a pretty good actor. It just sucks that his entire career can be summed up by getting shafted. Like, he's just being relegated to just like the generic male protagonist again. And I'm sure the movie will really be about him and his girlfriend and whatever their drama is, as opposed to the blue hedgehog we really want to see. But that is that. Next, Avengers Endgame. I finally got around to seeing it, and it's pretty good. It definitely has that satisfying finale feel you want it to. The action when it happens is epic, but there's not a lot of it. But when there is no action, it just focuses on the Avengers as characters, which has definitely always been the big thing about these movies, and that is the heroes themselves. And it really works in the first third when it's just how they deal with the tragedy of all this and the sadness and what this does to the world. There's a great scene with Scott Lang in like this memorial area that was haunting to watch. So a lot of that is really good, and the third act has the sort of epic emotional weight you want it to, and the ending had people crying, and the action had people cheering, and it was an awesome theater-going experience. That being said, I'm going to be a bit of a negative Nancy. I have a couple gripes with this one. First and foremost, this is not as much the big, epic, serious movie it was marketed as. The middle portion of this movie is this weird heist comedy. And even though I thought a lot of it was good, and I respect this movie a ton for going for broke in a way I don't think any comic book movie has ever gone before, and I respect a lot of the weirdness in the choices, it was still a little off-putting. Just, you have this version of the movie that we've had for a year now, and you have the seriousness of the first act, and then this, it just kind of felt jarring. I definitely need to watch it again. There's some amazing stuff in that set of scenes. I just kind of felt like, I don't know how I really feel about it. I just kind of feel like I need to watch that again. The next thing, if you like following time travel logic, I feel like this movie kind of commits sins based on its own rules, but that's whatever. Finally, my last problem, and it's sadly a really big one. I did not like the characterization of Thor in this movie at all. I won't spoil what it is in case you haven't seen it, but it did not work for me in the slightest. There's one or two moments where it looks like it's going to, but they always figured out a way to bog it down with just a really, I think, bad idea. And there's a lot of interesting stuff conceptually that they were doing with it. It just did not do it for me. But other than that, it's an awesome film. Go see it. You probably already have, but if you're like me and you had trouble finding tickets, it's worth getting into. And finally, this week's Yugioh Vrains. I liked a lot of this, actually. First thing I liked the escalation that is going on in this whole thing. And that is the way they show that the situation is getting worse. In the last episode, when you saw people getting neuron linked or whatever you want to call it, it was 12 people and they all kind of just looked like normal looking young adult dudes. This time around, it was a bigger crowd, and what was smart was it was a lot of different kinds of people. It was men, it was women, it was boys, it was girls. The reason they kept using that shot of the girl getting her brain speared through was because it gives you this idea of how bad things are. It makes you realize how hopeless everything is and how dangerous the situation is getting. You're not just watching things happen to pointless NPCs. When you see all those different looking people with all the different ways they are shown to express themselves through their avatars, you're reminded these are people. These are individuals who are now forced into the crossfire of this insanity, and it's a nice visual, and it's a really good way to show it. I also like that, and I kind of just think I realize this now, Bowman looks like a preacher. He looks like a cult leader, and that's a fascinating aspect to this whole thing, as he is kind of leading a cult based around him. He thinks he is the messianic hero who will guide humanity into its ultimate prosperity, and he's forcing people into it. Kind of an interesting angle for this show to take. Your hero is the guy who has a moral code, but he's not necessarily always preaching his ideology, while the people who do have the very strict ideologies are the ones who are always causing the problem. Kind of an interesting sort of aspect to it that I quite liked. Other things I quite liked, I keep liking the way Bowman addresses Yusaku. Always sort of wanting to be helpful tone. I like the idea that he gives Yusaku the option. I could give you your perfect life. And Yusaku's like, fuck you, you suck. That was pretty good. I had one problem. And it's kind of a big deal. Maybe not, depending on where it goes. I do not like the concept that people are just willy-nilly logging into Link Vrains to see all the dead bodies. I know that's always an issue when violent, gory, and disrespectful stuff gets uploaded to YouTube. A lot of people will check it out. There was that whole Logan Paul thing last year. But in this situation, I feel like people wouldn't do that. And you can make the argument that this proves Bowman's point that humanity is stupid, that humanity needs to be guided, that it needs a new leader, and all that stuff, and that here's Bowman ready to lead the sheep to become his flock into a new direction. That being said, I feel like most people in this world, especially after going through this 6 months ago with Revolver, would know not to log in, or there'd be a feature preventing them from logging in. But just being like, oh my god, people are dying and the whole world is fucked. I'm gonna go poke it with a stick. That's essentially what was happening, and it's kind of stupid. Again, I think there's definitely an interesting way to go about it. If it were me, I think the thing to do is make it that people aren't logging in. Soul Technologies is stopping them from going into this world. But what happens is Bowman is now so powerful he can override it and force people to be logged in and then steal them. I think showing he's that powerful could be interesting, but I feel like they're saving that for the next arc for what Soul Technologies is going to do next. I have no reason to go based on that. I mean, it just kind of makes sense to me. But that's just kind of my logic. All in all, I do still think this is a very interesting arc and has a nice way of having subtle but still scary imagery. So that is that. And last but not least, TCG question of the week. It happened, boys. Everyone is now joining in my anger towards the Megaton. Come learn the ways of Kevin. Come join me. For those of you who didn't hear, as many of you know, I did a video on this. I don't like that the Megaton is once again original Yu-Gi-Oh! Nostalgia milking. I don't like that the promos will be random. I don't like that there will be alternate arts. Okay, more, I just don't care about that. But the thing that now has basically turned a lot of people away is that instead of following tradition of doing the past year's core sets, Savage Strike will be omitted from the Megaton and be replaced with Dark Saviors. This is bad for a multitude of reasons. At minimum, it essentially means that we can no longer trust Konami to use the Megatons as a way to get us great reprints, because they could always just do this again. They could do other side sets nobody wants. And when a lot of people order truckloads of this, that's a real thing. They order truckloads of Megatons so that way they can sell all those Megapack reprints. This kind of worries your profit margin. So there's that, but also if we're just talking as far as what it means for the actual tins themselves, it essentially means that there will be no Phantasme reprint, there will be no Psychic Wielder, Borreload Savage, and the thing is, those are a lot of cards that are climbing up in price. Phantasme in particular is what, $120? That's insane, you can't expect people to pay that. But the thing is that a lot of people were hoping for that Phantasme reprint in the Megatons to get it more under control. With that not happening, that set will continue to go up in price. Phantasmes will continue to be expensive, thus continuing widening the gap between the competitive market and the casual market. But also it means that for the Megatons, your biggest sellers will now be the fact that there's Sky Striker stuff and Danger stuff. Both of those things have targets on their head. Konami has already shown with the Kagari hit that they are ready to start hitting Sky Striker. And with Dangers being one of the most controversial things in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now, and probably the next direction for our hatred, they also have a chopping block basically dated. And around the next ban list after July, when that eventually comes, will probably be in the fall after they've made their profit on the Megatons. So yeah, this is bad for everybody. But not me, because I already hated the Megaton, and now you all can join me in your hatred. I am truly your messiah. I am your Bowman. Anyways, so tell me what you thought about all this stuff below. A lot of stuff got covered this week. Tell me about it all below. And as always, click to like, click to subscribe, and join me for future coverage on all the insanity spoken of above.